Almighty God, we give thanks to you, the creator of the universe, the beneficent, the most merciful, and humbly beseech you to direct and prosper the deliberations of the members of this House here assembled for the advancement of your glory and the trust and welfare of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Grant that peace and happiness, truth and justice may be established amongst us for all generations.
Oath or affirmation. Announcements by the Speaker.
Honorable members, I have received communication from the Honorable Sean Sobers, member for Tabakeet, the Honorable Barry Shiva Padarat, member for Couva South, Mr. Stuart Young of Senior Council, member for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West, and Mr. Kareem Marcel, member for Laventille West, all of whom have requested leave of absence from today's sitting of the House. The leave which the members seek is hereby granted. I'm also to announce, and I will ask members to join me in acknowledging the presence of members of the Tobago House of Assembly who are here with us today. We have Assembly Member Niketa Percy, the Deputy Presiding Officer of the Tobago House of Assembly. We have Mr. Lincoln Nelson, the Clerk of the Assembly, Ms. Aliyah Chiong, the Executive Officer, and we are expected shortly to be joined by Mr. Neal George, the Presiding Officer of the Tobago House of Assembly. Can I extend a warm welcome to those members of the Tobago House of Assembly? Thank you very much.
Bills brought from the Senate, petitions, papers.
Minister of Finance.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to lay the following papers. 1, the consolidated audited financial statements of Trinidad and Tobago National Petroleum Marketing Company Limited and its subsidiaries for the year ended 31st March 2023. 2, the audited financial statements of the National Schools Dietary Services Limited for the year ended September 30th, 2025. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that papers 1 and 2 be referred to the Public Accounts Enterprises Committee.
Honorable members, the question is that papers 1 and 2 be referred to the Public Accounts Enterprises Committee. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any against? The ayes have it. Madam Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to lay the statement of the President pursuant to Section 9(1) of the Constitution of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, setting out the specific grounds on which the decision to declare the existence of a state of public emergency with effect from March 3, 2026 was based.
Reports from committees, Prime Minister's questions, urgent questions.
Member for Arima.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, to the Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, regarding the escalating conflict in the Middle East and the reported distress of Trinidad and Tobago nationals in that region, can the Minister identify what is being done to extract or evacuate Trinidad and Tobago citizens. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
In the absence of the Honourable Minister, I am advised that the Honourable Attorney General who's acting also as Minister of Foreign Affairs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The main countries where Trinidad and Tobago nationals reside in the Middle East are as follows: Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates, that is Dubai and Abu Dhabi, Kuwait and Qatar. The ministry's focus has been on establishing communications, seeing to logistics, and arranging safe passage for emergencies. In Saudi Arabia, our records show that we have 42 nationals, in Bahrain 5, in the United Arab Emirates 169, that is Dubai and Abu Dhabi, in Qatar 108, and in Kuwait we have no records at present. The ministry has been contacted by the following number of persons to date. Number of calls received from nationals on behalf of their families in the Middle East for the period 2nd to 5th March, 10. Number of emails from nationals and nationals in the Middle East for the period 2nd of March to 5th March, 80. I now set out the actions taken by the ministry so far. To date, the ministry has established a crisis response program comprised of the following. 1, the establishment of contact mechanisms. An emergency hotline, email, and number have been set up. It's available on the ministry's website and on all social media platforms. A WhatsApp emergency phone number, 1-868-499-4927, has been established. The ministry's updated the RSNA, a registration system for nationals abroad, for nationals to register their presence in the region and receive updates. We've also engaged diplomatic missions abroad, namely the High Commission of the United Kingdom and the High Commission of India. We've established a WhatsApp number for nationals in the Middle East for real-time communication.
Whilst I hate to interrupt you, the time allotted by the standing orders has expired, the 2 minutes. Thank you very much. A supplemental question, Aruka.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. In response to what the Attorney General just read out, Attorney General, can you say whether or not the government, or through its diplomatic channels, have issued any formal statement to families in Trinidad and Tobago so as to communicate with those affected residents in the disputed region?
I'm afraid that's an impermissible question. If you look, sorry? I'm afraid it's an impermissible question. That's a different question you're asking.
Questions on notice? Questions for oral answer?
Member for St. Anne's East.
Thank you, Mrs.
Yeah. Before we call on you, the Leader of Government Business, who should make a formal indication.
Answer all questions for oral answer on the order paper, all 9 questions. We seek a deferral of 2 weeks for written question number 29. But, Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the government, it is important that I put on the record that we have noted the absence of the member for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West. And of course, we do not question the leave, but Mr. Speaker, we see that there are questions on the order paper for the member once more, and we are prepared to answer them because it has been the precedent in the past that when a member is not here, the questions can still be asked. The government is here ready to answer.
I beg your pardon. In all fairness to the member did take the time to write. He did follow up with a phone call to one of the members of the clerk's office and did ask that his questions be deferred on the basis that he had not, of his absence, and that he had not given permission to any other member to ask a question on his behalf, which are the prerequisites of the standing orders. So in those circumstances, I propose to exercise my discretion and defer the questions. But this is the second time that these questions are being deferred. I just ask that it be noted. So can I call on the member for St. Anne's East?
Mr. Speaker, if I may I just draw your attention to Standing Order 29.8 and 29.12 and 13, which shows the circumstances of the deferral, please.
Confess, Barataria Someone, that when I proposed to exercise my discretion, I was unaware of the purport of Standing Order 2912. Chief Whip, can I draw this to your attention? At the request of a minister and with the approval of the House without debate, the answer to a question on the order paper may be deferred only once for a maximum of 14 days. A question so deferred is not to be taken. I think that this does not apply to a, hang on a second, it does not apply to a member who asks the question. The deferment of once only applies only to the minister who seeks to defer. All right, so I don't think it arises. Or Pooch?
I was in a position then, and I'm in a position now to answer all the questions filed by the member for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West. Mr. Speaker, it has been the long practice in this House that the leader of government of opposition business the Chief Whip would rise and ask on behalf of a member. I am not sure, Mr. Speaker, that the standing order provides any requirement for a member to give permission to anyone to ask the question. It does. So if it does, we have a long practice here.
Well, all right. Well, let me tell you what the standing order says. The standing order says that a question standing in the name of a member shall be asked by that member unless the member gives permission to another member to ask the question on his or her behalf. No such permission has been sought. No such permission has been granted. In the circumstances, yes, 28.9 says, 8, in the absence of a member in whose name a question stands, a question may be asked by any other member duly authorized to ask the question on behalf of the absent member, right? So that takes care of that. And then it provides for the asking of the question. Then the next standing order, which follows right after, provides for the minister to delegate his authority, his answer, to another minister duly authorized to answer on his behalf. So I think that we will defer those questions, but I want to place on notice that this is the second deferment of those. Yes, Chief Whip, can I?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I just also wanted to be noted that before the start of the proceedings, I did confer with my colleague, the Honourable Member for Mayaro, the acting leader of government business, and I did indicate to him the circumstances concerning those questions in the name of the Member of Parliament for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West. So these matters were taken care of before the proceedings out of due courtesy. So I'm quite surprised that my colleagues on the other side were trying to make a big mess out of this thing, which is quite straightforward. But the honorable thing, the decent thing, Mr. Speaker, was conferred with my colleague in the
You
opposition
made your
side.
point, and to seek to color it with adjectives, I think that's counterproductive. And bear in mind, we're in 40 minutes, you know, which time has gone. So let's move on. So a member for St. Anne's East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, question number 43 to the Minister of Education.
Sean.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. In response to question number 43 on the order paper, part 1, for the 2025 Schools Panorama Competition, a total of 54 schools participated in the preliminary rounds. This comprised 32 primary schools and 22 secondary schools. Following the preliminary stage, 12 primary schools and 10 secondary schools successfully qualified for the finals, a total of 22 schools. In 2026, a total of 42 schools participated in the preliminary stages of the schools panorama competition. This included 32 primary and 10 secondary schools. At the finals, 12 primary schools and 10 secondary schools performed, a total of 22 schools. Part 2 of the question, Mr. Speaker. The change in venue for the schools panorama competition was undertaken as part of the Ministry of Education's effort to reduce the centralization of the National Schools Carnival events at the traditional venue in Port of Spain and to promote wider national inclusion. Following confirmation from the San Fernando City Corporation that Skinner Park could feasibly host the 2 junior panorama competitions, the Ministry proceeded with a change and informed its stakeholders accordingly. To ensure that no school was disadvantaged by this adjustment, the Ministry introduced support measures. Mr. Speaker, this included transportation grants, free transport for students and supporters, coverage of Tobago's participation costs, and the mobilization of an interministerial committee to strengthen logistical and safety arrangements. Mr. Speaker, the venue change was therefore intended to enhance equity, access, and broader participation in the competition. Mr. Speaker, our approach prioritized long-term national development. Thank you.
St. Anne's East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, can the Minister indicate the reason for the reduction in participation, given the thrust to have a broader access?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, participation levels vary annually based on school-level decisions and readiness. The Ministry of Education facilitates the competition and ensures that all eligible schools had the opportunity to participate. Thank you.
St. Anne's East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, is the Minister aware of any school that would have registered and that would have removed their registration based on the change in venue?
Next question. Yes, St. Anne's East. That's it?
I'm good, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Member for Diego Martin Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question number 56 to the Minister of Works and Infrastructure.
Works and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you so much. You're very kind. The Highways Division of the Ministry of Works. Pardon? No, I didn't no talk. I want to hear the question. I thought there was a crosstalk. Why didn't fix your road when what's the problem?
Go take them on Prime Minister.
Friend, I could sit where I want, a seat doesn't dictate who I am, I'm Jillian John from Charlottesville. I sit in any seat. They asked me, the parliament was very kind to call me and ask me where I wanted to sit. And I said, I'll sit right here, because office doesn't define me. I ain't hungry for office, I'm not like you, me ain't hungry for nothing. Right? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Highways Division of the Ministry of Works and Infrastructure. Friend, you could call me old too, that's all right. Right? Good. The Highways Division of the Ministry of Works and Infrastructure. Customary conducts patching works on the road. This is the Monkoko Road between the Four Roads intersection and Majuba Crossroad in Pity Valley. Never fix the road, nobody asks me question, but it's all right. But we are proper government. All right? We are proper government for all. And when UNC wins Monkoko Road between the Four Roads intersection and Majuba Crossroad in Digo Martin, they win too. So as such, maintenance is scheduled to commence in April of 2026, something you all have never done. You all would have said until the 12th of never, right? With works anticipated to be completed within 2 weeks, sir.
Diego Martin Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Supplemental question to the member from Couva North and Acting Prime Minister. Minister, the question refers to the resurfacing and not patching of the Monkoko Road. I'm getting
All right, I think before Chief Whip you so vociferously knocked the desk, there's no reference to resurfacing in this question. The question says with regard to the paving, right? So ask your question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I take your guidance. Minister, the question refers to the paving of the Monkoko Road and not the patching. Can you inform this House if the contract that was awarded, I believe in either late March or early April of 2025, will begin for the full paving of the Monkoko Road between the Four Roads intersection and Majuba Crossroad?
Mr. The Highways Division, under which jurisdiction paving, patching, whatever it is, falls, they have told me that patching works on the road will start in April 2026.
Diego Martin Northeast.
Just for the record, Majuba Crossroad is the boundary of my constituency. Minister, abandoning the routine and regular maintenance of a very busy main road.
Listen.
Ask
a question.
That's the question. That's the question.
Sorry?
That is the question.
Mr. Speaker, it is a question. All right. Abandoning the maintenance of a road. Hold on. Is that a question? You know very well that's an impermissible question. You can if you wish, but I'm not permitting it in the phraseology that
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The lack of maintenance, the absence of maintenance for 1 year on a very busy main road in a PNM constituency, I heard the minister say that was a win. How is that a win?
All right. I rule that question to be grossly impermissible. Diego Martin Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Supplemental question to the Acting Prime Minister. Acting Prime Minister, can you tell me or tell this House if after the patching exercise of the Highways Division, if the contract for the paving will be honored by the ministry?
Rise from the primary question. You see, again, members have to understand, when you ask a question on notice for written answer, you all would have seen that the questions are sometimes helpfully edited by the Parliament staff to break it down. If you want to ask a composite question, ask a question, a main question, break it down for which you require other sub-answers, but in a composite manner. What you're trying to do now is to ask an entirely different question which does not form, hang on a second, which does not form part of what you propose to ask as a composite question. So I'm not permitting that. So you may ask your last question. Diego Martin Central got my eye first.
Mr. Speaker, I was responding to you not to ask a question. So.
All right. Diego Martin noticed.
In the industry, paving and patching are two different things. The minister said that patching will begin next month. When will paving begin?
Diego Martin Central, number 57.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, question number 57 to the Minister of Works and Infrastructure and Acting Prime Minister.
Honourable Minister.
In response to that question, Mr. Speaker, the Diego Martin River is approximately 2.0 kilometers long and runs from the Diego Martin Valley flowing south towards the Gulf of ParlView. The Ministry of Works and Infrastructure undertakes maintenance work on rivers utilizing the Drainage Division in-house river control workers. The division has 2 river control worker crews assigned to the Diego Martin area, which is 2 more than they had, by the way. These crews are currently operating at Symon Road and Lansmithtown. The residential area, which runs parallel to Jasper Avenue in Diamondville, is scheduled to be manually cleaned, with works proposed to commence in the next cycle of planned works. This cycle is scheduled to begin on March 9, 2026. The works are anticipated to be completed in approximately 3 weeks thereafter.
Martin Central.
Minister, the question lays out the Diego Martin River, and of course it does speak to particularly. Can you tell me if after the area that runs parallel to Jasper, if those works will continue down the Diego Martin River as it runs through the thing?
Minister.
I don't know which one to be quite honest. Listen, basically, I was very clear. All right, in terms of based on whatever questions, they say the river runs parallel to Jasper Avenue in Diamondville. That was your question. So my answer is, and I'll repeat it, the residential area which runs parallel to Jasper Avenue in Diamondville, that is what you said, is scheduled to be manually cleaned. The cleaning is supposed to begin on March 9th. That is what I said. Right? And it should continue for the completion within approximately 3 weeks. That is it.
You're not paying attention. Prime Minister, don't repeat yourself.
You
can't explain yourself.
Are we going to engage in crosstalk or ask questions? Right, so let's move. In that case, let's move to 58, Diego Martin Central.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Question number 58 to the Minister of Works and Infrastructure and Acting Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I've been advised that the vegetation control works were undertaken in the vicinity of Victoria Keys and Powder Magazine during the period 9th to 23rd February 2026. Well, they call the bush, but bush grows back. I don't know where he was. You understand? So the ministry has further advised that because the bush grow back after the 9th to the 23rd, that's almost a whole month in the area. The honourable member probably didn't see that. But however, the Highways Department Division will commence works again on the 9th of March, 2026, from the Four Roads Light to Wendy Fitzwilliam Boulevard. These works are anticipated to be completed within 2 fortnights, subject to weather conditions.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, supplemental question based on the answer. Having visited that area multiple times, it was only the roundabout that was cut. And the question obviously speaks to the verges. Can the minister tell me when the works recommence in the area that you spoke about at Victoria Keys and Powder Magazine Phase 2? Will it now include the verges as opposed to only the roundabout?
Minister.
Well, in your first question, you didn't admit that even the roundabout had been cut in. All right? Whether the verges were cut or not, I am unaware. But as I said, grass grows back. I don't know what kind of intervals you visit there. All right? But whoever the workers will do a complete job. What roundabout, verges, hedges, however you describe them. Okay, sir? All right, I don't know what else you want. At least because you never admitted that works were done, you come as if no work was done.
Diego Martin Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in response to the minister's answer and pointing out that work started after this question had been filed, I am simply asking, no, Mr. Speaker, I have been accused.
Let's resist the temptation to over-editorialize and ask questions. This is question time. This is not speech time. Ask a question. I'm permitting you, but ask a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hope the over-editorializing extends to all members of this House. Mr. Speaker, having reference to the answer, having reference to the initial question, knowing that those works started after this question was filed in this House, I am simply asking if the verges, which is a common term used by the Highways Division for cutting those pieces of land on the side of the roads that are under the jurisdiction of the Highways Division, will those be cut and removed when those works restart? Because they have not been as yet. And, Mr. Speaker, they have not been in 10 months.
There are two things wrong with that. First of all, no, hang on. It's prima facie an impermissible question. The question has been asked and answered. If you taking the time to carefully listen to the answer, the question has been asked and answered, and I so rule. We're wasting time on this. No, we're moving on. No, we're moving on. We're going to the next question. The time for that has gone. No one raised their hand. I was about to call on question 59. You want to ask a supplemental? Go ahead.
Much so. The question asks, when would regular maintenance be resumed? Could we get an answer to that, please? When will regular maintenance of the road verges resume?
Minister?
I have said in very clear, unambiguous terms that the Highways Division, the vegetation control, whatever that is, They will go into Powder Magazine and Victoria Keys on the 9th of March, 2026. The member is free to go and see if they're cutting hedges and bridges on that occasion. He's free, right? It's a free country, right? It's a free country.
Charlotte. Until East Mova.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question number 59 to the Minister of the People and Social Development and Family Services.
Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I am advised by the Social Welfare Division of the Ministry of the People, Social Development and Family Services that the district of Laventille East Morvat falls under the jurisdiction of the St. George Central Aranguez Local Public Assistance Board. With this local board, there are 3 established social welfare advisor 1 officers and 1 field officer social welfare engaged on a short-term contract who are assigned to provide social services to the district of Laventille East Morvat. The established officers proceeded on approved vacation leave on a staggered basis during the period December 2025 to February 2026, while replacement officers were not available during the respective leave periods. Internal arrangements were implemented to ensure continuity of service delivery. In addition, the district continued to benefit from the services of a field officer during the relevant period. Furthermore, the district is currently staffed with its approved establishment and service delivery has continued during the relevant period. Mr. Speaker, additionally, the ministry is actively pursuing measures to hire additional contract and temporary staff to ensure that essential social services continue to be delivered to vulnerable individuals and households without interruption across all local board districts, including Laventille East Morvat. The ministry also continues to work closely through the appropriate channels with the Service Commission's department to follow up on requests to fill key vacant positions on the establishment of the Social Welfare Division.
Laventille East Morvat.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Given the response from the Honourable Minister, it's quite baffling to me as over the past 10 months, there has been several constituents that came and they stated otherwise, that their office has reported to them that there is no officer assigned to the area. So it's quite baffling to me that the minister is stating that there is an officer
spliced
assigned.
in there somewhere.
So could the minister confirm if over the past 10 months, if there was actually an officer assigned, as this is what was reported to me by the constituents?
That has been asked and answered. Thank you. Question number 60. I am advised that Aruka Lopino has authorization to ask that question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, question number 60 to the Minister of Housing.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question number 60, I've been advised by both Cabinet and the Ministry that no approval has been given.
Yes.
Aruka Lopino.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, in response to a supplemental question to the Minister, Minister, are you going to take action against a rogue chairman of the HDC?
You know very well what you're asking there is impermissible under the rules. Why are you persisting in asking impermissible questions? Second one, come on, go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not asking impermissible question. I'm asking a question. It's
question.
Supplemental. Thank you very much. Minister, do you plan to invoke your powers as a minister to take action against the chairman of the HGC for...
Second question. Chief Whip, have a seat. You're asking the same question which was just disallowed. So 2 strikes. Diego Martin, Northeast.
Thank you very much. Since the policy has not been approved by Cabinet, could the Minister explain why there was publication of this policy by an authority figure within the HDC?
That question doesn't fall in the ambit of the general question. Overruled. The question is why there was publication. How does that fit into this question that has been asked? This is a very narrowly circumscribed question. It says, I'm not going to read it, but anyone with any modicum of sense reading this question will see that it is not an open-textured question. It is a narrowly circumscribed question.
Mr. Speaker.
So next question.
Supplemental. The question speaks to the question. Hold on. Mr. Speaker, I am explaining my supplemental very briefly. The question posed spoke to the decision of the HDC, and the supplemental is, what is the reason for this decision of the HDC in the absence of Cabinet approval?
I again rule impermissible. It's not. That's a matter of your interpretation, but it's not. And we're not continuing this. We're overruling. Let's move on.
Request for leave to move the adjournment of the House on definite matters of urgent public importance. Statements by ministers.
Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I have been authorized by the Cabinet to make the following statement. Earlier this morning, the Honorable Kamala Prasad Bisesa SC, Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, departed Trinidad and Tobago to attend a very important gathering of select leaders in the Americas on the invitation of the President of the United States, Donald Trump. The event, the Shield of America Summit, is scheduled for March 7, 2026 in Miami, Florida. This invitation from the United States President was extended to the leaders of a coalition of nations which include Argentina, Chile, Paraguay, Panama, Dominican Republic, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Honduras, Bolivia, and Ecuador, which the United States has identified as committed to advancing freedom, security, and prosperity in the Western Hemisphere. Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana were the only other CARICOM countries invited to attend this event. Mr. Speaker, as I shared last week in my statement to the Parliament concerning the outcome of Trinidad and Tobago's participation at the 50th regular meeting of CARICOM, the new administration, or this administration, led by the Honorable Kamala Prasad Bisesa, Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, has prioritized this country's partnership with the United States of America. This prioritization by the government of Trinidad and Tobago has resulted in Trinidad and Tobago-US relations being at the highest level since 1962. This was only achieved in 9 months. Mr. Speaker, Trinidad and Tobago and the United States of America have enjoyed warm and friendly relations dating back to the establishment of diplomatic relations on August 31, 1962. Bilateral collaboration between Trinidad and Tobago and the US is strong and ongoing on a myriad of issues such as security, education, culture, youth affairs, energy, trade, technical assistance, and the training of military personnel. The United States of America is Trinidad and Tobago's largest trading partner for both exports and imports. In 2024, annual exports to the USA amounted to approximately TT 21 billion, with energy accounting for TT 15.4 billion and non-energy accounting for an estimated TT 5.6 billion. Mr. Speaker, the government of Trinidad and Tobago sees this country's partnership with the world's largest economy as an important opportunity for Trinidad and Tobago and the United States of America to deepen hemispheric energy cooperation, strengthen regional stability, and reinforce trusted commercial ties. As a consequence, Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Prime Minister will have one-on-one discussions with the United States President Donald Trump, as well as senior officials in his administration, including Secretary of State Marco Rubio, United States Trade Rep Jameson Greer, and Secretary of Energy Chris Wright. Mr. Speaker, Trinidad and Tobago is deeply honored to be among the countries in the Americas which share a clear and consistent commitment to democratic governance, including free and fair elections, rule of law, equality before the law, separation of powers, accountability, transparency, and protection of fundamental freedoms. To this end, the Honourable Prime Minister will also hold direct bilateral discussions with her colleagues throughout the Americas, including the President of Argentina, the President of Panama, the President of El Salvador, and the President of the Dominican Republic. Such high-level engagement with our Latin American partners dovetails well with Trinidad and Tobago's current outreach to Mercosur and other Latin American countries. Our participation in the Mercosur has the potential to activate in new potential export markets for manufacturers, promote the trade in services, in particular tourism, culture, finance, and ICT services. Mr. Speaker, while in Florida, the Trinidad and Tobago delegation, led by the Honourable Prime Minister, is scheduled to meet with other representatives of the U.S. government, investors, and business leaders. Mr. Speaker, our foreign policy partnerships with countries throughout the world, including those in the Americas, will enhance Trinidad and Tobago's role as a responsible energy hub, supporting domestic industry, safeguarding jobs, and contributing to a reliable supply chains that benefit both Trinidad and Tobago and our partners. In this regard, the participation of the Honourable Prime Minister in the Shield of the Americas Summit and aforementioned high-level engagements with key decision-makers in the United States is in keeping with the foreign policy orientation of Trinidad and Tobago, centrally aimed at making this country stronger, safer, and more prosperous. Thank you.
Personal explanations, introduction of bills. On the supplemental order paper, the Advanced Passenger Information and Passenger Name Record Bill in the name of the Attorney General, the Parole Bill 2026 in the name of the Attorney General. Motions relating to the business or sittings of the House and moved by a minister.
Leader of the government business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that Mr. Saddam Hussein be appointed to serve on the Public Administration and Appropriations Committee in lieu of Mr. Roger Alexander.
Honourable members, the question is that Mr. Saddam Hussein be appointed to serve on the Public Administration and Appropriations Committee in lieu of Mr. Roger Alexander. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Any against? The ayes have it.
Public business, private members' business. Motions.
Honourable members, the debate on the following motion, which was in progress when the House adjourned on Friday, January 23, 2026, will be resumed. Be it resolved that this House take note of the socio-economic impact of increased unemployment in communities arising from mass terminations and non-renewal of contracts, and of the resulting breakdown in community and social life. Be it further resolved, sorry, I beg your pardon, that this government urgently respond to this developing socio-economic crisis by immediately providing adequate and meaningful social relief measures. When this motion was last adjourned, the member for Chaguanas East was speaking. The learned member still has 27 minutes of original speaking time left, so I will call on the member for Chaguanas East.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as I continue my contribution to this debate, I wish to extend heartfelt greetings to the women of Trinidad and Tobago and across the world on this occasion, or on the occasion of International Women's Day 2026, observed under the theme, Rights, Justice, Action for all women and girls. Today is a moment to recognize the immeasurable contributions of women to our families, our communities, and the development of our nation. while reaffirming our collective commitment to building a society where every woman and girl can live with dignity, opportunity, and security. Mr. Speaker, at the same time, I take this opportunity to express my deepest condolences to the family and loved ones of Ms. Stacey Samaru, whose tragic passing has deeply saddened the national community following the discovery of her body in Tobago earlier this week. I also extend sincere condolences to the grieving family of the mother of 12 children who was recently struck and killed, a loss that has shaken many across our country. Our thoughts and prayers remain with these families during this period of profound sorrow, and we stand as a government in solidarity with them as they mourn the loss of their loved ones. Mr. Speaker, as I continue my contribution here today, the last day I would have spoken for two or so minutes, so I'm here to continue, and I thank you for that. And as I continue, it's rather strange, Mr. Speaker, this is the first time I'm seeing that the mover of a motion, whilst it's being debated, the mover of the motion is not sitting in the House. I understand the excuse was given, but I'm just expressing.
And not only that, there's a standing order which speaks about commenting
Sure.
on the absence of members. So I'll ask members to observe that standing order, please.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, understood, but I just thought I should mention it as I move into the meat of my contribution. Mr. Speaker, in looking at this motion, what I noticed, or what we noticed, is that it invokes the suffering of the poor and vulnerable, yet carefully omitting the years of neglect, the years of inaction and indifference that created and that deepened that suffering under those who now sit opposite Mr. Speaker and pretend to be concerned. Mr. Speaker, the mover of this motion, Mr. Speaker, when he spoke on the last occasion, I found that he was totally unprepared in his contribution. Mr. Speaker, what he stood and did for quite a period of time during his contribution was speak about the UNC manifesto and not really the contents of his motion. And Mr. Speaker, in his first part of his contribution, he would have stated that we on this side would have declared complete war on the citizenry of this country. Mr. Speaker, he also said that they stand in defense of the most vulnerable of this country. Mr. Speaker, today, in response to that, we sat in opposition once, and I can recall clearly that it was the PNM who declared war on the citizenry of this country. And in addition to that, Mr. Speaker, to hear them say, while they contribute, that they stand in defense of the poor and vulnerable, I have to say to the population that that is a big joke, Mr. Speaker. That is a big joke. Because, Mr. Speaker, when they speak, you have to wonder, they have now realized, or they are now learning that things are hard. I listen to members on the other side. I wonder where they were when we sat in opposition and we were supporting our constituents facing hardships out of pocket on most days when we couldn't get the services, when we write to them, Mr. Speaker. So I would really like to know, what defense are they standing in today? Mr. Speaker, in addition to that, I would have listened to other members, and I spoke for 2 minutes on the last day, and the member from Malabar, Mausika, had to go on social media behind 4 walls and in front of a computer screen to have a whole session about me. But, Mr. Speaker, we celebrate International Women's Day this weekend, and I am taken up with the business of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So I will tell Malabar Mausika I have good lawyers, but I'm not ready to deal with you yet. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I want to share today, because I want to deal with the work of my ministry and the work of this government, and I would share that since the change in government, the Ministry of the People's mandate has not been diluted. It has been expanded, Mr. Speaker. It has been strengthened, now encompassing the responsibility for gender and child affairs, recognizing that vulnerability is not accidental, but systematic and must be confronted deliberately and comprehensively, and that is what we have been doing, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as I move on, I want to place facts here today and figures and verified outcomes on the parliamentary record. And St. Anne's East would have contributed on the last day. And I want to look at the Hansard a little bit and refer to what she said in her contribution condemning the callous and tone-deaf governance of the UNC. But, Mr. Speaker, today I stand here in this chamber. I stand next to some colleagues who would have served before. I stand next to some colleagues who it's their first term in this House. And I want to remind this House and remind members of the population of what was really evil, vindictive, callous, and tone-deaf. Mr. Speaker, evil, vindictive, callous, and tone-deaf was cutting 18,000 food cards. Mr. Speaker, evil, vindictive, callous, and tone-deaf was cutting baby grant for single mothers. Mr. Speaker, evil, vindictive, callous, and tone-deaf was leaving the elderly to wet in the rain. Mr. Speaker, evil, vindictive, callous, and tone-deaf was removing the Disability Caregiving Project and closing down the NTRC in Carsonfield. Mr. Speaker, evil, vindictive, callous, and tone-deaf is calling the people of this country greedy and not needy. Mr. Speaker, evil, vindictive, callous, and tone-deaf is leaving backlogs for us to clean up your mess. That is evil and vindictive. Mr. Speaker, most of all, evil, vindictive, callous, and tone-deaf is leaving the families of the divers outside of a compound with no answers, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, 48-1, please.
I'm responding to your colleague.
The words used by the member was evil, callous, wicked, and vindictive.
Talking about the divers, Mr. Speaker, 48-1.
Overruled.
You cannot take the facts off the record. Mr. Speaker, so what social support you gave to the divers, that is evil, that is callous, that is tone-deaf, Mr. Speaker. But what I know, Mr. Speaker, and we on this side are sure about, is the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago gave an ex gratia payment to the families of the divers. Mr. Speaker, I want to deal a little bit with paragraph 1 of the motion, which asserts that it is the responsibility of the government to safeguard the well-being of the citizens and promote a decent standard of living. Mr. Speaker, since assuming office in April 2025, what this government has done, this government has deliberately repositioned social protection as a central pillar of national development, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the mover of the motion, which is the member for Lavantil West, would have spoken, and he referred to CPEP and URP. And he even said during his contribution, Mr. Speaker, that, and I read from the Hansard, Mr. Speaker, they make it a sin to be hired by the PNM. They make it a sin to even be employed anywhere between 2015 and 2025. Mr. Speaker, their whole aim and objective when bringing this motion is to speak about CPEP and URP. They are going everywhere, thousands unemployed, thousands fired. Mr. Speaker, I want to deal with that today. I want to deal with this CPEP and URP matter and put it to a close. You could grumble and mumble how much you want. I have no time with you because I'm here about the people's business. Mr. Speaker, the whole issue with them on the other side, the PNM, is they want to be in power out of government. That is their problem. They cannot use CPEP and URP to their advantage. But, Mr. Speaker, I want to remind, especially Malabar Mausika, because I'm speaking after him, the day after elections, Mr. Speaker, I can speak for my very own constituency of Shagona-Sis. The contractors they hired, everybody who looked like a UNC, I want to talk about who looked like a PNM. If you even mention UNC when the election, they were firing persons. The contractors that they hired, calling them outright UNC. When you go to URP for 10 days when they were in government, if they only see them collecting a hamper from Vandana or any UNC MP, you know what they would say? Come out of here, we have no time and no work for you. We will call you when we have. Those are the facts of the matter. Mr. Speaker, I was a representative 2013 to 15 whilst we were in government. When we lost the election in 2015, ask them what they did. The next day, they placed locks on every URP office. Every URP office. We must never forget that. You fired everybody. When our CPEP contractors received letters of termination after 2015, and they came to us with the letters of termination, what could we have said? We are not in government. Government change. They know how it works, Mr. Speaker. So when they come now to cry wolf and drop crocodile tears and pretend as though they care about people who are working in CPEP and URP, they are just pretending. They know how the system works. They know what they did. So they are trying to use this to their advantage, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the members on the other side have the audacity to talk about people being sent home from URP. Mr. Speaker, in our term 2010 to 2015, under the URP, there was the national caregiving, the disability caregiving project, a national project. Parents with children who suffer from cerebral palsy, they were paid under URP to take care of their children as a part of a program, and they were trained, etc. Ask them what they did in 2015 when they came into office. They scrapped that program, Mr. Speaker, and they closed what they renamed about 3 times, the National Therapeutic Center in Carson Field. And they are here today to talk about protecting the vulnerable, and to speak about who's been fired, and to speak about URP and CPEP. They have the audacity as well, Mr. Speaker, to put items about persons with disabilities in this motion when they scrap programs under URP for persons with disabilities, parents of children with disabilities. But, Mr. Speaker, today I am proud to report that the National Enrichment Center, back to its old name, that has been reopened under this government. Mr. Speaker, today I want to commend my colleague, Minister of Health and Minister in the Ministry of Health, member for Faizabad and Caroni East. In less than 9 months, my apologies, Oropuch West and Caroni East, Mr. Speaker. In less than 9 months, they closed that center, the PNM. In less than 9 months, we reopened that center. We had an MOU done. We had a MOU done between Ministry of the People and Ministry of Health. And that center, which is located in Carson Field, Caroni Central Trinidad, a part of Trinidad and Tobago, Mr. Speaker, that center is now servicing children with disabilities. This is a proud moment for us on this side, Mr. Speaker. Proud moment. vision of the Honorable Prime Minister serving for a second time as Prime Minister. And I want to read for you, Mr. Speaker, feedback from parents utilizing that facility. Hey, Vans, good morning, because you have to bring it real, Mr. Speaker. Part of a parent's feedback. Thank you very much. We have our appointment this year, so hopefully all goes well. And this is the words of a parent. It was such a pleasant experience. Lavantelis, you hearing that? Child-friendly, spacious. Doctor indicated they are trying to clear the backlog in the system. They don't like to hear that word backlog. Before November, and take all new cases from November this year. Let me read another message, Mr. Speaker, for you. A parent experience. Good morning, Vans. I wanted to share an update, or rather a parent's experience. She had an appointment at the Enrichment Center this morning. The experience was comprehensive. The doctors were very understanding, and the overall atmosphere was accommodating. We built that, Mr. Speaker. It's worth mentioning that she came from deep south as well. So, point 14, you hearing that? I hope that more parents have similarly positive experiences. Looking forward to our visit soon at a similar location. Have a great day. Mr. Speaker, this is the voice of the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. Speaker, your government working for you. Malabar Mausika, if you don't know how to use ChatGPT, don't try to pin that on the citizens. Member for San Fernando, please calm yourself. Mr. Speaker, as I continue here today, the member for, I want to deal with the member for Malabar Mausika, because Mr. Speaker, he has plenty mouth, but no substance. Mr. Speaker, he asked about period poverty intervention. Mr. Speaker, the member for Lavantil East Morvan, he's really disturbing a well-prepared presentation here today. Right? Mr. Speaker, so I will not entertain his nonsense. Mr. Speaker, the member for Malabar Mausika would have asked about period poverty interventions. And Mr. Speaker, I'm sorry I did not get to respond properly to him that day, but he was very late. The cabinet approved the committee. The committee is working. Yes. We do things through process and procedures. So, Mr. Speaker, no paddle. You ain't asked nothing. Calm yourself in that corner. Mr. Speaker.
I think we've had enough of this answering and cross-answering.
Speak about someone who could not get sanitary pads and so on in his constituency, can't afford, right? And Mr. Speaker, he wanted to know when can persons access these items and so on. The committee is doing its work, Mr. Speaker, and very soon the Ministry of the People would have presented their proposal already, and very soon this project will be run through the schools of this nation. Wow. Through the schools. Mr. Speaker, the member would have also asked about items, sanitary napkins and so on, who can access it. Maybe he's not aware that the Gender and Child Affairs Division, they have been distributing sanitary products to schools already, and there are several NGOs in this country who work with the Ministry of the People, Social Development and Family Services, delivering these items to persons. But, Mr. Speaker, what I want to share with the member through you, because I'm addressing you, Mr. Speaker.
I'm both seeing you and hearing you. So it's either you stop it, or I propose to invoke 55(1). Okay? I'm sorry, what did you just say? Thank you. So, move on, Chegwala, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. But what I want to share with the member for Malabar Mausika, Mr. Speaker, I have been an opposition MP I'm now a government MP. I've been a councillor, a mayor, and since then, I've been distributing sanitary products to the people I represent without any government funding. So, Mr. Speaker, maybe Diego Martin Central can share with him because he served in the ministry, in the office of the Prime Minister under Gender and Child Affairs.
You will serve in sanitary packs?
Mr. Speaker, what I want to share with Malabar Mausika, I did it, many MPs do it, Maruga Tableland been doing it too in her constituency. But what I will share is get to work in your constituencies. Find innovative ways to help your people. Don't sit and only cry, and you have no way of serving your constituents. Mr. Speaker, as I move on and I continue, I want to deal with St. Anne's East a little bit. Who would have stated in her contribution here on the last occasion that there's a social crisis. The UNC has created a social crisis. I'm quoting from the Hansard. The member also spoke, and during her contribution, in asking about a social crisis in this country, went on to speak about social exclusion amounting to crisis, and the UNC government she's demanding that the UNC provide adequate and meaningful social relief measures and include educational measures to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Even went on to tell my colleague for San Fernando West that when he speaks, he says nothing at all and attack my colleague. But I want to tell St. Anne's East here today, San Fernando West is a distinguished man of this country.
Yes.
And he can teach her as well.
Yes.
He can teach her as well. He was the principal of Naparima Boys College. And if you go in San Fernando West, well, the results of the general election proved it. He was an excellent principal. And the people of San Fernando West, the name they know is Daulat, the member for San Fernando West. So, Mr. Speaker, when the member spoke of a social crisis, I was taken aback. Because right now I know that the member for San Fernando West, and I am the member for San Fernando West is the Minister of Education, and I'm the Minister of the People. And we have been collaborating. We have launched the National Art Competition against bullying in schools, against gender-based violence. We've been working with each other since we came in office. But what I want to ask her today is what she did with the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services while she was Minister of Education. Mr. Speaker, today I stand here in this house and I tell the member for St. Anne's East who asked about social programs and what is being done in this country and by this government. Mr. Speaker, this is my achievement report for 9 months. Mr. Speaker, the member, my Prime Minister sent me on a press conference, and I used this to talk to the population, and I could have said to them everything we did for them since we came into office. Mr. Speaker, that member sat here as a minister. I never saw one achievement report shown here in this chamber or outside of this chamber to the country. Not one thing she could have said she did for the students and the children of this country. Instead, she defends craziness and she uses words against respected citizens of this country. And I will tell the member today that the member for Siparia is a well-established woman of this country, this Caribbean region, and globally. And the member for Siparia is respected by all of her members, by her constituents, and we support our Prime Minister, whether what be her age. And our Prime Minister will never speak like the member for St. Anne's East. And Mr. Speaker, I don't know if you are looking at social media or anyone in this house, even their members, the entire country is against what St. Anne's East said last night. And The people have rejected that in April 2025, and they will never support the PNM because of that type of behavior. Mr. Speaker, our Prime Minister may have some age, but she's well respected. She's well respected. And Mr. Speaker, she has done more for this country than any one of them sitting on that side. Mr. Speaker, so when the member for St. Anne's East speaks about social crisis, I want to remind her of certain things. I want to remind her of what we achieved under this government. I want to remind her that we have been clearing backlogs that they left. Senior citizens pension, public assistance, disability grant, disaster relief, etc. We have been clearing their backlogs. You just heard it at the National Enrichment Center from the parent herself who would have shared her experience. Mr. Speaker, the member for St. Anne's East, in speaking about social crisis, I had to wonder what she meant by what she was saying, because, Mr. Speaker, I want to deal a little bit with the member and what she said. Now, I would have looked at a press conference and the member herself called out a list of services offered offered by the Ministry of the People, Social Development and Family Services. It was as though she now learned of the services provided by the Ministry of the People. She sounded so unfamiliar. She didn't even know that these services were offered even under her government, Mr. Speaker. So when she spoke, I was baffled, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, what social crisis? We came into office, Mr. Speaker, and we have honored senior citizens pension grant payments. We have honored public assistance grant payments. We have honored disability grant payments for adults and for minors. Mr. Speaker, we have also honored NGO payments, statutory bodies, similar bodies. We have been giving one-off grants to NGOs for specific projects to deal with social issues in this country. Mr. Speaker, in addition to that, we have been distributing grants throughout this nation, not in few areas. And Mr. Speaker, today I report we have been in Point Fortin, we have been in Central, we have been in Grandi, Sangre Grande. We have distributed grants for Dago Martin Central, Dago Martin West, Dago Martin Northeast, Laventille East, Laventille West. And Mr. Speaker, you would have heard it here yourself when Laventille West said thank you to the Minister of the People. We've distributed grants in Kumoto, Manzanilla, Claxton Bay, Naparima, Chaguanas West, every constituency in this country. Port of Spain South, not forgetting, Mr. Speaker, as well, all of them, all of their areas have been receiving grants. But what I want to share with them today, this weekend, Mr. Speaker, we are in Komoto, Manzanilla, and Sangre Grande. On Wednesday, we'll be in Princestown, Moruga, Tableland, and Naparima again. Next week, Saturday, in Rio Claro, and another part of Komoto, Manzanilla, the Manzanilla area. So we are distributing grants everywhere. But, Mr. Speaker, what is sad is these disaster relief grants and home repair grants that are being distributed are as far back as 2022. And Mr. Speaker, I am proud that I can stand in this government, go to every community and engage in community-based distribution, not discriminate. Mr. Speaker, they're speaking social crisis. I have been throughout this country giving seed grants to help small entrepreneurs. So when they say we are not providing opportunities, we created these items in 2010 to 15, and we have been supporting young business people. I went to Kuva Tabaki Talparo Regional Corporation, and we asked some of those persons, Do you have anything to share with us? Do you have any questions? Mr. Speaker, I was so proud. I was so proud. My board permanent secretaries as well. We were so proud to hear those people say, you apply for these things so long and you're now getting it, but I guess when UNC win, everybody win. In San Fernando West, we got that as well. When the UNC win, everybody winning, because look at this. We are getting our business opportunities. So when you speak social crisis, you are acting as though the state is not providing anything or any opportunities to the people of this nation. But today I am telling you, this government is spending on its citizens, and we are providing social support to all of those who are in need. Mr. Speaker, I will not forget that everything I ask about for Tobago, it is as though the Ministry of Social Development eradicated Tobago when the PNM was in government. Everything that I do now, I have to say, please include Tobago. Why they are not included? Why are you telling me about the THA when we are central government, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, when we did our child poverty consultation recently, we took it to Tobago. There was an issue with payment and honoring a local board in Tobago, a public assistance board, fighting with the THA, fighting with Tobago. Mr. Speaker, I am proud that my Prime Minister sent me to install the Tobago Public Assistance Board to help the people of Tobago, not fight with the people of Tobago, not eradicate them from the social services. Mr. Speaker, food support in Tobago, it is amazing that it is not under the local public assistance board, but it was at CAS.
My clerk and I were at cross purposes. We had the wrong time. So what I have to do is, you've crossed your speaking time. So I'm going to ask you if you'll avail yourself of your 15 minutes and just remind you have 10 more minutes. Thank you. I apologize to members. It just escaped me. I wrote the wrong time down.
Mr. Speaker.
It's entirely my fault.
Sure, no problem. Mr. Speaker, the thing sweet is plenty delivery, so, you know, that's okay, Mr. Speaker. I respect your decision. I respect you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, I want to go again because 10 minutes is not much time. Mr. Speaker, the St. Jude's girls, the St. Jude's School for Girls. Mr. Speaker, when I got to that ministry, there were outstanding contract gratuity payments. Some people died waiting on those gratuity payments. Mr. Speaker, I am so happy to report to this House. I'm at my constituency office. I'm at the ministry. Everywhere I'm at, these people are finding a way to reach me to ask about their gratuities for years after years, Mr. Speaker. Today, I'm happy, I'm proud to report that this government would have provided the funding in the sum of $1,510,755 to accommodate payments, long outstanding contract gratuity and severance payments to 35 persons, Mr. Speaker. We don't leave people who serve our children. So coming here to speak about social crisis when you fail to honor commitments of the state, I say that's shame on their part, but at the same time, Mr. Speaker, I'm proud that we are delivering to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. Speaker, I want to deal with a matter raised by Malabar Mausika again on social services offices, and this is very important because Lavantilis, of course, it's going to help you as well. I don't know if you don't know, when you come after a member who spoke, you have to respond to what they say. Don't act surprised. Mr. Speaker, the member for Malabar Mausika, and I quote from the Hansard, he indicated that people who come to his office and so on would have spoken about the bureaucracy And, they were told they do not qualify because of the household income, some of these persons. Some of them are young people still living with their parents, etc. And I concur with him. Mr. Speaker, in less than 9 months, this government would have put a committee in place to review the standard means test, which people have to face when they go to social services offices. And Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to report delivery again that the Cabinet would have approved the recommendations of the committee in relation to the standard means test. Mr. Speaker, very soon, in a couple months, offices will have the new SMT, standard means test, and people will not face issues like what Malabar Mausika would have outlined. We received this complaint on our campaign trail, but what I would say, we were using prices from 2015. So for 10 years, they never upgraded the means test, Mr. Speaker, but the UNC did. I'm proud of that, and I'm proud to know that the vulnerable will be taken care of once again by the UNC, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, quickly, again, I want to speak about, things the government we have been doing. Social crisis. You're speaking about social crisis. Mr. Speaker, I am so happy to know that when I took up this position given by the Prime Minister, and I thank her for that, I went in there knowing that when you're representing people and you have nothing to give to them and they come in by your office for help, for food, etc., you wonder where you're going to get it immediately. And I'm so happy. I heard Malabar Mausika say 50 more than 200 we used to give because you create hardship on people. Mr. Speaker, ungrateful much? I must say. However, Mr. Speaker, what I will say is that for years I've been writing, increase the number. The social issues are increasing, and Port of Spain South, you would know about that. Mr. Speaker, increase the number. They never increased it. But Mr. Speaker, I'm happy that under this government, we didn't only get Christmas food cards, MPs got Diwali food cards. Yes. MPs got Christmas food cards. Yes. Mr. Speaker, MPs got Eid ul-Fitr food cards. And Mr. Speaker, MPs are going to get Shelter Baptist food cards. Mr. Speaker, I ain't only doing my work on the paper, I'm taking care of all of them to take care of their constituency. And if they say a lie, they should be ashamed to watch me in my face. Mr. Speaker, and I know Aruka Maloney, Aruka Lopino, my good friend. He's smiling because he's the happiest man on earth right now. Right? He loves himself. He gets in thing to give to the people, Mr. Speaker. Right? So, Mr. Speaker, with those things being said, Mr. Speaker, I would say from the Social Services Ministry and through the work of all of my colleagues sitting on this side, we have been taking care of the poor, the vulnerable, way better than they have done. Mr. Speaker, we've cleared backlogs. We are reviving and revising policies. We have continued food support. We've continued all our grants. And Mr. Speaker, what I would say is we are about performance. They talk, we deliver. Mr. Speaker, this motion before us is aspirational, but this government is fully operational and on the ground. Performance. Today I stood here and I gave results of the government. Mr. Speaker, we govern by results. To the population of Trinidad and Tobago, this is your government working for you. Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity to contribute to this debate.
Diego Martin Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will sound like you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for the opportunity to rise and contribute to this motion before this Honourable House today. And at the outset, I would like to thank the member for Laventille West for bringing this most important motion before the Parliament. Mr. Speaker, the issues raised in this motion speak directly to the lived reality of many communities across this country. I also rise today, Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the constituents of Diego Martin Central, many of whom share in a growing concern now being expressed across the country regarding the economic uncertainty of families and workers as a result of the very issues that are outlined in this motion. And beyond them, Mr. Speaker, I also rise on behalf of the constituents who are also grappling with the knock-on effects of the closure of programs like CPEP, like the reforestation program, and like URP. Mr. Speaker, the motion before this House raises issues that go, as I said, directly to the well-being of citizens and the stability, Mr. Speaker, of communities. It calls upon the House to take note of the socio-economic consequences. And, Mr. Speaker, even as we say socio-economic, we also have to consider the psychosocial matters that we are faced with. Arising from mass terminations and the non-renewal of contracts across public bodies, state agencies, and local government entities. And Mr. Speaker, the motion asks us to consider not just numbers or statistics. Those are important. But the motion asks us to consider the real impact that unemployment has on families, communities, and the broader economy, both at the micro and, as a result of that, the macro level. Mr. Speaker, when employment disappears from vulnerable communities in particular, the consequences do not remain confined just to the former workplace. This has become much like a stone thrown in a pond. It ripples outwards. It ripples, spreads outwards. It affects families. It affects neighborhood businesses, both because they lose customers, and as a result of that, very often they have to let go staff, and the process begins again. Mr. Speaker, it affects the economic life of entire vulnerable communities. Mr. Speaker, when household incomes decline or disappear altogether, local activity in a community slows, and at too rapid a pace, the stability of those communities crumble. And Mr. Speaker, we are seeing it. We are seeing it in our constituencies, and despite what they may say on that side, we know that they are seeing it as well. Mr. Speaker, the motion begins with a principle that should guide every government. It reminds us that government is responsible and has a fundamental responsibility to safeguard the well-being of citizens and to promote conditions that enable a decent standard of living. It reminds us that the government should have that concept and that ideology at the forefront of its mind, its collective mind, and its actions, and that the establishment of that should be the standard by which all of their policies should be judged. Simple, Mr. Speaker. Every program, every economic decision, every public policy initiative must ultimately be seen through that lens. Does it strengthen the well-being of citizens? Does it expand opportunity? Or, like the very decisions that we have spoken about that have occurred in this country since April 20th, 2025, does it remove stability from the lives of ordinary people? And Mr. Speaker, that is what this motion is speaking about. That we have decisions that have removed opportunity, have removed employment, has removed stability from the lives of ordinary people and the communities in which they live. Mr. Speaker, the motion refers to mass terminations and non-renewal of contracts across public bodies, state agencies, and local government entities. When citizens across Trinidad and Tobago report to their members of parliament, at least those who spend time both in their communities and speaking with their constituents in their offices on their public day, when they report what has occurred over the last 9 months, Mr. Speaker, we understand it's a lived reality for us that none of these things have occurred as a single isolated incident. If there was a single issue that led to the retrenchment or the firing of a single group, one could say that's a one-off. But Mr. Speaker, what we saw was firings, terminations, all happening in phases. So, Speaker, there was the initial phase, which was that mass firing phase, impacting tens of thousands of people in this country. All of whom, not some, not many, not most, all of whom are considered as some of the most vulnerable in our society. Those phases happening, as I said, some concurrently, some overlapping. Mr. Speaker, that first phase passed. Forestry gone, URP gone, CPEP gone, WASA gone, RHA is gone. Ministry staff, including the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government, gone. HDC gone. Those were workers whose employment provided stability not only for their households, not only for their families, but also collectively in the communities in which they live. Mr. Speaker, another phase was then the removal of key decision makers and administrators across ministries, state agencies, and programs and units, individuals who carried institutional knowledge and experience. The very agencies and ministries who were delivery agencies and ministries impacted by that, which impacted their ability to deliver. The speaker before me from Chaguanas East, Mr. Speaker, her ministry was impacted by that. The letting go, the non-renewals, letting go of people who sit in departments, divisions, and units in her ministry. We have a colleague here today who, even as an answer was given to him regarding the non-performance of people who represent her ministry, he was able to say, but that is not true. Your answer to me is not the lived reality. It shows a real disconnect from what is given to them and what is happening on the ground. Mr. Speaker, the third phase is this non-renewal, and this phase is ongoing. The non-renewal of contracts across ministries and state agencies. Mr. Speaker, I realize I am waving this at you, and I want to let you know it's no disrespect to you. Huh? But, Mr. Speaker, these developments, as we see this phase of non-renewals, widening that circle of citizens who have suddenly found themselves uncertain about their future. These developments were deliberate policy decisions taken by the executive of a UNC government. Mr. Speaker, when they came here to speak about those decisions, we remember the justifications put forward. Justifications that 11 months later are totally unfounded. Warnings of audits, warnings of huge revelations. So, Speaker, where are they? Where are those? But a justification, not for anybody who sits here, but for a wider population who would see that. Mr. Speaker, let the population know, 11 months later, that is just a whistle in the wind, you know. Nothing. The only outcome of all of this is tens of thousands, despite whether they want to admit it or not. Tens of thousands of vulnerable citizens who sit at home not knowing where the next dollar will come from. Mr. Speaker, decisions that inevitably carry consequences for thousands of families and communities across this country have been made, and it is precisely those consequences that this motion that has been so wrongly dismissed is dealing with. Mr. Speaker, as we talk about wrongly dismissed, I would like to speak a little bit about the government's response in this motion, in this debate. It has been astounding in its disconnection, in its lack of empathy, and in its dismissiveness, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, during the previous day's debate, and continued in some way today, although I have to say, not as much by Shogunas East. However, the members opposite have dismissed this motion entirely. We have been told that the motion is baseless. We have been told that it was founded on a false premise. And Mr. Speaker, as the member for Oropuch, he says correct. If that is truly the starting position of the government, then the population must take careful note. Because what the government is effectively saying to you is that there is no problem to address and you do not exist. Mr. Speaker, tens of thousands of citizens who lost employment since April 28th exist. They exist and they are suffering. They exist and they come to us as their MPs. And as I said, I am sure they go to them too, to dismiss them. Anyway, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, communities across this country families across this country know and feel otherwise, because they have eyes to see and they have ears to hear. But what they don't have, Mr. Speaker, is money to spend. And you know, Mr. Speaker, the more than 100,000 people who registered for the government's recruitment platform, they knew otherwise as well, you know. And I'll speak to that a little bit as well. But they understood that a problem exists. They understood that consequences were being felt. And dismissing the problem does nothing to erase that burden that is now being carried by the most vulnerable in our society. So, Speaker, another part of the narrative, the collective narrative on that side, has continued again today to do with the what did you do in 10 years? Mr. Speaker, this motion speaks to what has happened since April 28th. To simply speak about in your responses with what you did in 10 years is to try to absolve yourself of any responsibility since you, as was announced inside here, became the policy makers and you are the decision makers now. Well, your decisions are the chickens that are coming home to roost. Mr. Speaker, raised repeatedly from the previous day in the debate, the familiar refrain, what did you do in the last 10 years? And Mr. Speaker, it should be addressed. It should be addressed, but it should be addressed in the context of the motion that is before us, sitting in the framework that has been established in that motion before the House. Because the motion reminds us that government has a responsibility to safeguard the well-being of citizens and promote conditions that enable a decent standard of living. And that responsibility cannot be fulfilled by the rhetoric that we have seen, not only in this debate, but what has now become customary from those on that side. Mr. Speaker, it requires planning, it requires policy, it requires a structured approach to a very serious issue. A real opportunity, Mr. Speaker, instills hope. And this motion reflects the hopelessness of the society today, because any chance of opportunity for the vulnerable in this society seems to be fading into darkness. Mr. Speaker, what did we do? A responsible PNM government understood that employment policy, because that is what we're speaking about here, employment policy could never be one-dimensional. Different citizens face different barriers to entering the workforce. In some cases, you have some who require immediate employment opportunities. Some require training. Some require practical experience that bridges the gap between education and employment. And still, some require a structured intervention to help them return to a productive path. And that is why a responsible PNM government pursued a multi-pronged approach to employment creation. Mr. Speaker, the very programs that they have come to this House repeatedly to besmirch, CPEP, URP, and national reforestation in particular, provided employment opportunities for citizens who could not easily enter the formal labor market, while also delivering services that improved the physical environment of communities. Mr. Speaker, training initiatives, largely through the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service, equipped young citizens with practical skills that allow them to enter industries of their choice, whether it was to be an important part of an organization or to become the creators of opportunities themselves. Training initiatives done through the on-the-job training program provided a bridge between academic education and employment. Mr. Speaker, and then programs like MILAT and CCC. Dismissed now, eh? Programs like MILAT and CCC helped young citizens who needed structure and mentorship to return to that productive path. Internship opportunities across ministries also allowed young professionals to gain experience while contributing ideas, their voice, and their perspectives to government policy and the implementation of that policy. So, Mr. Speaker, when you examine these things together, these initiatives formed a structured employment and opportunity-generating framework designed to permeate throughout the society. Mr. Speaker, the member for Chaguanas East spoke at length today. And with the exception of a reply to my friend from Malabar, Mausika, concerning period poverty, nothing applied to this motion. There was no conversation about what such an important ministry, the role that that ministry played in creating a safety net for those tens of thousands of people who have been so treated by a callous and uncaring government. And Mr. Speaker, it comes back to the motion, because the motion reminds this House that sound public administration requires appropriate measures to cushion socio-economic shocks on vulnerable groups. We know the mass terminations and non-renewal of contracts were not accidental developments. We know that they were deliberate policy decisions. Mr. Speaker, responsible governance requires that when those decisions are taken to displace tens of thousands of workers, measures must be put in place to cushion the impact on those workers, their families, those communities, and the wider national public. But, Mr. Speaker, in 40-odd minutes, no conversation was had concerning what such an important ministry did in order to cushion the impact on those workers, their families, the community, and the wider national public. Instead, what we were regaled with was, I have something from Malabar Mausika, and let me talk about this one and talk about that one. Mr. Speaker, I have sympathy for, and I quite like the member for Chaguanas East. Like her, I came from local government. Like her, I entered into this stage of politics in 2020 after leading a regional corporation. So there is always going to be that sort of connection. Absolutely did not Oropuch East. Mr. Speaker, I've been distracted for the first time and I apologize for that. Right? However, Mr. Speaker, when the member speaking about the general work of her ministry, and I'm glad that she had an opportunity to report here on what she's doing. Maybe she'll get an opportunity during the budget debate at some point, because she didn't speak about what she was doing in the last budget debate. But I'm glad that she had an opportunity to speak. But when she spoke about grants being distributed, and she spoke about members on this side, I wouldn't have said that, Mr. Speaker, but she called my name, or my constituency. Mr. Speaker, much like the saying that one swallow does not a summer make, one grant does not a distribution make. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, we know that when these decisions were taken, there was either no concern for the fallout, there was no discussion with the minister, or her solutions provided were not taken on. Because there is no place in the solution that should be there, that is not there. There is no place for that ministry, because the average citizen, despite the tooting of her own horn, the average citizen is still struggling with the collection of grants in this country. Mr. Speaker, that was the basis. That was the basis for a question raised in our last sitting. And we were told then that, having understood that there was a problem with delivery, that they were continuing to implement the solutions provided to them by a PNM government. Mr. Speaker, I want to speak a little bit about... Mr. Speaker, I want you to go back in your Hansard and see how much of this motion Labrie talk about. How much of the motion Labrie talk about? 45 minutes. 45 minutes of warm breeze, you know. Mr. Speaker, the motion refers to mental health strain, and international labor research includes, if you allow me to read, Mr. Speaker, it's outside of my ballpark a bit. International labor research, including work by the ILO, has consistently shown that sudden job loss is closely associated with increased levels of stress and anxiety within households. Mr. Speaker, employment provides more than income. Employment provides structure. It provides purpose. It provides dignity. It provides stability. Yes. Mr. Speaker, when that disappears, particularly when it disappears suddenly, families experience uncertainty and they experience emotional strain. Mr. Speaker, I know what it is like as a father of two young children, having to make decisions in private life. Slow down. Two young children, having to make decisions in private life, which meant that the next year or two would be an uncertain future for me. And the anxiety that caused because I had children to provide for. Mr. Speaker, in that case, I still had a future. It was just that I knew what was ahead of me for the next 2 years. Imagine if there was no hope ahead of you, how that would feel. How, as a father, you would feel. Those levels of anxiety erupt in the house. That level of feeling less than erupts in the house. Mr. Speaker, when these realities are dismissed, it is a worrying signal from this government. The motion, Mr. Speaker, also warns that increased employment may create risks of public safety and social stability. Mr. Speaker, it is important for the House to understand that those concerns didn't suddenly appear in the recent weeks. It did not appear in the creation of this motion. It didn't appear in the debate. as early as October 5th, 2025, just before the budget. Development economist Dr. Ralph Henry issued a clear warning to this country. And he said that the mass termination of tens of thousands of workers, which had already happened by that time, could have serious social consequences if the issue was not addressed. Mr. Speaker, his warning...
On to 15 minutes.
I will, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, his warning wasn't issued in a political context. It's easy to dismiss what we do here from across the aisle. One talking politics, the next one talking politics. Dr. Henry did not issue his warning in a political context. It was issued as an economic analysis of the labor market and the structure of employment in Trinidad and Tobago. Dr. Henry cautioned that when large numbers of workers suddenly lose stable sources of income,
Yeah, the study was undertaken.
Mr. Speaker, it was not a study, it was a report carried in The Guardian of October 5th. It was quoting Dr. Henry's analysis. Mr. Speaker, I have said it, and at this point I understand that it is meant to be a distraction. All right? Mr. Speaker, Dr. Henry cautioned that when large numbers of workers suddenly lose stable sources of income, the effects do not remain confined to the economic statistics. He warned then that the pressures created by sudden unemployment could manifest themselves in several ways across the society. He spoke about the risk of increased depression, rising domestic conflict within households, and behavioral challenges among young people. Mr. Speaker, those warnings were issued months ago. And since that time, the official data has begun to reflect the economic disruption that was anticipated. Recent reporting based on the CSO's figures indicate that approximately 12,000 jobs were lost between April and September 2025. And Mr. Speaker, 12,000 jobs being lost by itself is a troubling figure. However, it is also important to recognize that unemployment statistics do not always capture the full extent of the economic distress within a society. Under internationally accepted labor market definitions, a person is counted as unemployed only if that individual is without work, available to work, and actively seeking employment. This means that the official employment rate captures only those who remain classified as part of the labor force and continue to search for work. It does not fully reflect those who have become discouraged, despondent, depressed, and have stopped looking for employment, nor does it fully capture the reality of underemployment, where individuals, and this is a reality I know in my constituency, where individuals may be forced into irregular or informal activities simply to sustain themselves. Mr. Speaker, increasingly, we are seeing signs that wider social pressures are real in this society. As recent as yesterday, headlines, the Minister of Education highlighting growing concerns about violence and behavioral disturbances within schools, and educators raising alarms, Mr. Speaker, about incidents involving students that reflect rising levels of frustration and instability. Now, Mr. Speaker, no responsible person, and I would like to consider myself one, would suggest that there is a single, solitary explanation for student bad behavior. However, it would also be irresponsible to ignore the broader social context Within these developments that are taking place, families are experiencing economic strain. Parents, single parents, struggling to maintain stability within their household. Mr. Speaker, when uncertainty about employment and income becomes part of daily life, those pressures blow up in homes, and unfortunately, it is in the schools that too often we see the knock-on effect reflected in our young people. Mr. Speaker, if these issues are left unattended, the pressures that we are beginning to observe today will only deepen in the months and years ahead. That is why this motion is so timely. It is why this motion is so important. And it is why the blatant dismissal of it by the members opposite is so worrying. Mr. Speaker, can I ask you how much time I have left, Mr. Speaker?
10 minutes.
Oh, 10 minutes. All right. Oh, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Oh, thank you. Oh. So, Mr. Speaker, we know that when public concern began to grow around the unemployment reality, the mass termination reality, the non-renewal of contracts reality in this country, when that started to explode in the wider society, the government announced a national recruitment drive promising more than 20,000 jobs. Mr. Speaker, when I say about opportunity gives hope, you had 110,000 citizens applying in good faith, believing that the promise of employment or the ability to improve their own employment reality in that moment would materialize. Mr. Speaker, less than 2,000 opportunities out of the 110 people and out of the 20,000 promised jobs have actually materialized. I shudder to think, Mr. Speaker, that the only deliverable from that is a database. Because that wasn't job creation. That was the collection of information in a PR exercise. Mr. Speaker, Member for Labrie, in his time, thank you, Chief. Member for Labrie, in his time, when he briefly came back to what we were speaking about here, pointed to the Open Spaces program as evidence of employment creation. Mr. Speaker, hiring 200 workers cannot be presented as a response to the loss of tens of thousands of jobs. You cannot remove thousands of jobs and then point to 200 hires as proof that the government cares. Again, Mr. Speaker, it's not policy that is meant to deliver opportunity, yet another public relations exercise. Mr. Speaker, 45, okay. When we examine the developments together, a clear pattern emerges. Jobs have been removed. Promises of replacement employment has not materialized. Families are experiencing economic strain. Small businesses are struggling. Communities are feeling psychological and economic effects of this level of disruption. Those realities cannot be dismissed simply because they are politically inconvenient for the government. They have to be recognized. They have to be addressed. Mr. Speaker, that is why the motion calls upon the government to provide adequate and meaningful social relief measures. Because when government policy decisions create economic shocks within communities, responsible governance, Mr. Speaker, requires that those communities receive support. And Mr. Speaker, it is for those reasons that I, and on behalf of the constituents of Diego Martin Central, support this motion wholeheartedly. And thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Puchis.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to rise and speak on this ill-advised motion before us. Mr. Speaker, it's a pleasure yet again to be in the House and reflect with colleagues on, by themselves, important issues, notwithstanding the very poor approach of members of the opposition in articulating without any level of confidence and any compelling arguments on matters which by themselves are important matters facing the national community. May I first, Mr. Speaker, congratulate our acting leader of the House, the very distinguished member for Mayaro, Minister, in his role as leader of government business. And he has had very good training over several years, of course, from several persons who I will not name. Mr. Speaker, I'm also standing here and extremely excited that on my left sits the acting Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, the very distinguished Minister of Works and Infrastructure, herself a towering figure in the politics of Trinidad and Tobago, and a personality I believe that the citizens, the people of Tobago and Trinidad must be extremely proud that the member for Cova North occupies that position in Trinidad and Tobago at this time. So we want to congratulate her on her functions, and we are confident she will display and conduct those tasks with the dignity and strength that is required. Mr. Speaker, let me get to this motion immediately. Mr. Speaker, I have read this motion several times in preparing myself. There was a point in which I thought this was written in another language and translated into English. Because when I read this motion, I first told myself, why would senior colleagues on the opposition, presumably members for Trin City, Diego Martin Northeast, Arima, Aruka Lopino, why would they allow the member for Lavantil West to file this motion in this form? Why did you do that? Why were you so unfair? Why were you so deliberate? Why were you so harsh on a young colleague from Diego Martin West to allow him to file this in this form? Lavantil West, to file in this form. You see, Mr. Speaker, with great respect, the motion itself is convoluted. This is a government's dream. You can speak about anything in the world on this motion. It is not focused. It is not dealing with specific issues of social policy and so on. It is on everything. It is convoluted. It repeats itself. This thing deals with, food insecurity, school absenteeism, mental health strain, risk of social exclusion, etc., etc. And it just goes on and calling on the House to take note of mass terminations. What is mass termination? Is it genocide? What mass terminations? And by itself, Mr. Speaker, I could not understand how this motion could rear its head in an opposition that has at least some history of participation in parliamentary affairs. And therefore, I do not blame the member for Laventille West. I blame his senior colleagues on that side. They may be setting him up. Mr. Speaker, I want to compliment the members of the government who have spoken, the member for Labre, the very dynamic member as well, Shagwan Aziz, on trying to flesh out and articulate some sense from this lack of clarity, from this lack of precision, Mr. Speaker, by the member for Laventille West. Mr. Speaker, the member for Laventille West files a motion with a government that is only within a first year, a few months, and speaks about, or purport to speak about unemployment and the impact of this and linking it to the ILO post-pandemic definition and mental strain and mental, challenges and so on. Mr. Speaker, since the dawn of industrial society, you have had changes in the structure of the labor market as industrialization took its course. You have always had changes in the structure of the labor market. You have had labor displacing technology throughout time. Today, artificial intelligence may not replace natural stupidity, but artificial intelligence poses a threat to labor as well. You have had structural changes in the labor market. And the member comes today and filed this motion, and his colleague speaks about all of this fallout effect. And what I was shocked is that they allowed him to file a motion where he rooted his motion. And Mr. Speaker, I also read his presentation several times, and I noticed, I cannot draw anybody into this business, but I noticed there was an attempt by others to restrict him to the recitals of his motion, to try to restrict him. But again, in his presentation, he was all over the place. It was a wild presentation. It was pelting dart and just make sure it hit the board. And it missed the board. This is where you could hit somebody standing next to the board. Mr. Speaker, it was unfocused, and you cannot root a motion to say press reports indicate. I've never seen this before in 25 years. The press report, but then the press council should file this. Where is Priya Bihari, the president of Impact or MAT or whatever they call it? He should file a motion because press reports suggest this and suggest that and suggest the other. You can't root in press reports because, Mr. Speaker, I have press reports too. I can read from them. Then, and when I looked at it, it was across every discipline. Mr. Speaker, the member for Laventille West did not do us any service. And the members opposite with the experience in parliamentary matters let down the member for Laventille West and the entire opposition by filing such a vexatious, frivolous, unworthy motion before this House. You see, Mr. Speaker, in his opening statement, when he piloted this motion, I looked through, there was, in this entire 45 minutes presentation, there was a reference to a Guardian article. That was the evidence. That was the extent of the evidence that was presented. And he quoted an economist in the newspaper as the member for Degomartin Central purported to do a few minutes ago. He quoted an economist, he says, from a newspaper article. When I rose and I said, what study was that? When was that written? When was the data shared? He said, no, this was in the newspaper last year. And the friend from Degomartin Central, Mr. Speaker, is well known to us. In a former parliament, I think he was the well-received eulogizer in the parliament. And those unfortunate moments, he would rise to speak with some, in a solemn breath on matters. And I think that is his calling. It is not a social and economic analysis. It is not a social and economic analysis, Mr. Speaker. Yeah, it is not that. It is not that. Mr. Speaker, and he does a good job at that. I say that with admiration. Mr. Speaker, throughout the narrative of the opposition members, throughout the narrative, we're hearing about CPEP, URP, forestry, this tree, that tree. We're hearing about that. And that is, if there's your bone of contention, no problem, file a question and let the relevant minister answer, whatever. But to root an entire motion on this, on the tree, when this government is led by a prime minister whose compassion, whose care, and whose love is now legendary. It's now legendary. And has taken enormous energy to ensure that we placed in the public service system job-creating institutions. In 10 short months, we have had programs during the July-August period that hired thousands of persons in the school repair program. We have had programs for the Christmas season. We have had for the carnival season. All of this is within 10 months. Several ministries, I remember the minister with responsibility for public utilities, ministers with responsibility for tertiary education, local government, have had job-creating programs in their communities. That is why today, if it is that there are some persons in the national community who were hit or who experienced some, distress with other work programs, they were absorbed and they were utilized and they made an income from other programs that the government offered for productive employment. That is a fact. The other narrative my friends opposite bring, apart from just talking about CPEP and URP, is this ethnographic type of analysis that somebody met me in my office yesterday. So everybody had somebody meeting them in their office the day before. Mr. Speaker, somebody meet me in my office too. And they were very happy that a public institution advertised for jobs. They have applied and they have been interviewed, and the chances are they will get the job that they were interviewed for. So all of us can do that. That's not a big thing. We meet people all the time. Yes, by definition, people come to us because they're in distress. People don't go to the MP office generally because they're happy to see you. They go because they have a problem and they want to see you. If you're in the perfect health, what, you line up to the doctor office to see him? When you go to the MP office, it's because you have some issue you want to raise. It could be job, it could be medical, it could be housing, it could be whatever. So we all meet people who have needs. That's why we're here, because we have to satisfy the basic needs of persons. And what I was so disappointed in is that the 45 minutes was really spent on CPEP and URP, and I'll get back to that later. But to indicate, Mr. Speaker, that this motion appears to suggest that somehow the government is callous and taken action to disadvantage and depress people and so on, when we met in place an economy that was in crisis. The minister, member of parliament for Orapuch West now, Mr. Speaker, I think he would have gotten grey in a few short weeks. The worries that we had, and the Minister of Finance and the Prime Minister had to deal with in meeting the normal day-to-day bills of a government. When we got in there, Mr. Speaker, I think they saw Clorox, a mop and a broom in the Treasury. Everything clean out. Everything clean out. Yeah, everything clean out. You didn't know what you didn't know what you could pay for. We have to ask for help now. We had to go to the energy companies and ask for some quick help because all that we saw there was mop, broom, and Clorox. Mr. Speaker. And that was the... Mr. Speaker, That was the state of the Treasury. We are now building and rebuilding, and I'm happy to announce, because it speaks about social displacement and economic shock and so on. Mr. Speaker, we have taken action with the Minister of Finance, the Prime Minister, and others to reverse that. And as I have indicated, Mr. Speaker, in the calendar year 2024, which was the last full year of the other side, thankfully, Mr. Speaker, they contributed to the National Treasury, Minister of Finance, 7.8 billion. In 1 year, 2025, where the majority of that time was the UNC administration, 2025, we contributed $8.2 billion to the Treasury. So under our administration, we have given the Treasury from the energy sector $390 million more. So we are climbing back. And as you climb back, you help facilitate this myriad of social programs that the Minister of Social Development has outlined for you today. I mean, I was really taken aback by her presentation, that she had this roaming caravan approach to going to communities, people who waited 3 years or more for their grants and so on, receive their grants from this minister, who has no problem going in the community, in the village, in the town, to see the people. Mr. Speaker, we are informed that the Caroni workers waited, how much, a decade and a half or more, some people, for their lands under the Minister with responsibility for legal affairs and lands. They have given 800 lots of lands to former Caroni workers. All of this is 10 months. Huh? Mr. Speaker, I just want to make one point, because they keep talking about this mass termination and social dislocation and community engagement and so on. That is what I read in the speech of the member for Laventille West. Mr. Speaker, whereas we have had some alteration in employment in various programs, as we create new programs and go along, when they closed the former administration of that party opposite, when they closed Caroni 1975 Limited, you had disruptions in specific geographic locations. Yes. You brought depression, you brought social exclusion, you brought social challenges, crime, delinquency in specific communities. That is what the social dislocation associated with mass unemployment. When they closed Petrotrin and the refinery, they created a ghost town in Marabella, Claxton Bay, Deep South, Pinal, Barrackpore, Point Fortin, Labre. And the trauma was confined to a geographic locality, generally, because there are people who service those areas from outside as well. But you create enormous depression. That was the working of your administration. You did it. Today, cleaning up that mess is not easy. It's hard. But the member for Laventille West should have known that when you close Caroni, you close Petrotrin, you create that social dislocation and hardship in specific communities. Our alteration in employment programs, as we add new employment programs, did not create that sort of localized problem. Because even in areas throughout the corridor, throughout Central, throughout South, Deep South, and so on, we continue to offer employment opportunities through several state enterprises. We're actually ramping up employment opportunities now through several state enterprises that conduct work on a regular basis. And this is the point that you make. When they closed Caroni, there was nothing to take up the slack. When they closed the refinery, what happened? Everybody gone home. And they bring all their sad story from yesterday. Somebody meet them and think, okay, I'm not doubting them, Mr. Speaker, and I have compassion and empathy if that's the case. But what happened to the refinery worker who told us when the refinery closed at the end of 2018 that he then had to take his son out of University of the West Indies because they couldn't pay any more to facilitate tertiary education? So you start a degree, after 1 year you expect to be an engineer or, I don't know, economist or whatever, and 1 year later you have to take a child out of university because you cannot pay the bill. You cannot pay rent, you cannot pay food, you cannot pay other bills that are associated with tertiary education. That was the effect as well of a refinery. So, Mr. Speaker, today, to bring this crocodile tears, you care so much and you care, and we suffer so much and people suffering and so on. Mr. Speaker, half of them, I see them all around in Carnival and think, I look at the newspaper and social media and think, they enjoy them time. I think they had a rollicking time over the season. They were frolicking, you know, and they enjoyed themselves. And Mr. Speaker, I have no problem with that. They are entitled to excite themselves. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that when you root your arguments here, you must bring facts. You must bring facts. Don't bring this generic narrative, you know, type of old talk. The press report and the press this and the press say this, the press say that. You know, and that just reminds me, you know, because I was just stunned that he will root his argument on that. Because, Mr. Speaker, if we wanted to, not that we want to, but if we wanted to, we could quote The Guardian. You know, we could quote PM unveils revitalization plan. Mr. Speaker, 500 jobs, 50,000 jobs to come. PM unveils revitalization plan. 50,000 jobs to come. From the press, Mr. Speaker, Moonilal, government fixed 7 billion PNM energy mistake. The member for Polispay North made a mistake. He took the wrong document and figures to cabinet, and the country lost $7 billion. We fixed that. Energy decline halted. Oil output up 5.5%. ExxonMobil poised to unlock $20 billion in Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. Speaker, all newspaper article. We welcome Manatee Plus, 10% more on gas production. All of that is press reports. If we want to use press report, we bring two. We have to. But, Mr. Speaker, all of this will be done to the social and economic development of Trinidad and Tobago, which the member purported to be concerned with. Today, Mr. Speaker, I get no great joy from conflict all over the world. I always say that conflict is not good. It has serious problems with life and liberty and property and so on. But today Brent is at, I believe, $92.
Really?
Mr. Speaker.
Yeah. And you have any to sell?
In the last 12 hours, that means our revenue position just increased by $4 million United States dollars per month. Yes. In the last 18 hours or so. We can work it out roughly. I know Diego Martin, Northeast, likes his calculations. He's generally wrong, but he likes to calculate. He's already on his calculator, and as I say, he's one of the most researched men who is always wrong. Mr. Speaker, so in the last 18 hours, we have had $4 million United States dollars added to the Treasury per month. That was on 10 million, which I announced yesterday. So, Mr. Speaker, the social economic landscape would change, and with that would come greater investment in the social programs, greater investment in employment creation. And that is what we are about, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in the energy sector, it is my pleasure to report, you know, on a matter that has passed and is relevant to at least the concern in what is really a badly worded motion. But the concern, if the concern is genuine, we can speak about the concern, because the motion itself, as I said, is badly worded. And the members opposite should really take the responsibility for that. Because you see, Mr. Speaker, I would tell you in the budget in 2025, October, the Prime Minister caused to be inserted in the budget a provision where we recognize, you know, ongoing challenges for ordinary citizens in Trinidad and Tobago. And as an accountable government, it is our responsibility to meet and treat with persons in the society who are not as fortunate as others. And that is why we reduced the price of super gasoline at the gas station pump by $1 per litre, when the member from the Martin Northeast raised it 4 times. We reduced it. The first chance the member for Arapuch West had at the well, we say the fishbowl, but at the podium here, the first chance he got at the podium, he dropped the price of super gasoline. Mr. Speaker, I can report that this benefited, Mr. Speaker, 400,000 vehicle owners. 400,000 vehicle owners benefited, which accounts for 40% of the total number of vehicles. Mr. Speaker, I can indicate that the average person saved $200 per month, and we have spent from the Treasury to assist the population $390 million to assist That is how you assist people in times of social economic challenge. You lower the price of gasoline, Mr. Speaker. You remove VAT from food items. That is how you help. So that to bring this argument that you don't care and there's no logic and people suffering is really, I believe, frivolous. I don't know what happened if they had a deadline to meet and they realized they had no motion on the order paper and they just tell them, file something, you know, and set up the member for Laventille West. You understand, Mr. Speaker? So something is amiss there. And Mr. Speaker, this government has brought relief to the ordinary citizen of Trinidad and Tobago through several measures. And Mr. Speaker, the data, as I said, we must be data-driven. The data don't bear them out at all. I'm hearing the member for Diego Martin Central talking to them, and this is what they do. When they talk, they just pull figures from the sky, and, you know, it might be 10,000, then I hear something about tens of thousands, then somebody said 200,000 people lost their job. The only people who really lost their job and have mental problems is the members opposite. I think they are going through a learning curve. They have lost their jobs April last year, and some of them, not all,
unemployable.
Untrainable, you say, and unemployable. And I mean, that is a labor market challenge as well. So, members opposite, we can understand the stress. We can understand that. That is not something difficult to understand. So, I wanted to indicate that. You know, and another issue that struck me, Mr. Speaker, with this badly worded motion that was driven by something else. I don't know what it was driven at. Several speakers opposite spoke about this matter. This about mass termination and mass this and mass that and so on. And then they had to read this one, non-renewal of contracts. You know, non-renewal of contracts. Mr. Speaker, I listened to that, and I read it, of course, because on the last occasion I had the opportunity to listen to a speaker, I believe was a member for, what is Malabar? Mausika? Yeah. I listened to him as well speak, and I have his presentation here, his contribution, of course. And in his contribution, I don't want to misquote our radio announcer, but you know, I don't misquote him at all, you know. But yes, he made reference here, and he spoke about mass terminations and non-renewal of contracts and so on. Mr. Speaker, in 2015, when a then government came in, within a day or two, they marched into URP offices in San Fernando, Pinal, Shoguanas, and just went and said, listen, all of you out. The government changed, everybody gone. Please, get out. Go on. And people were shocked. I mean, some people knew they may have to go, but they expected a 2 months or 3 months or something, grace or something. Mr. Speaker, they got no grace before, during, or after meals. They got none. And they're gone, Mr. Speaker. And today I'm hearing non-renewal. Mr. Speaker, the classic example of this wickedity, this wickedity on the part of the members opposite. You know, Google that. Wickedity. Or some might say, Google that. Or Google that. Mr. Speaker, the example of wickedity I bring to the table now is when I got in, Mr. Speaker, into office, I have in my hand a minute sheet from a minute, one of these big-time files, you know. When members were opposite here, there were 2 members for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West, former member for San Fernando West, I believe. Sometime Laventille West. Who was Laventille West? Okay. Sometimes Laventille West. When he was awake, which was rare, Mr. Speaker, they would come in the house and bring 2 big boxes and throw all the files on the desk and only appear. There's in management, there's something called image management. It means give people the impression that you're working hard. And we say, oh, these people busy. I mean, what busy? Plenty work. And Mr. Speaker, there are personnel files and there are files from CPO to sign, you know, confirming terms and conditions of work. But sometimes one file could be about 3 inches thicker. And when they come here, you think it's some important thing they're dealing with. And this time, it's two clerks and a stenographer, a butler and cook or something somewhere. We have to confirm their terms and conditions, or somebody spent $250 more and we need to reimburse. But, Mr. Speaker, those files I'm referring to, I bring only the sheets, 1 or 2 pages. And, Mr. Speaker, do you know when the member for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West, and his absence is not a fault of the government. I want to put that on record here. His continuing absence is not a fault of the government. Members are free for their personal or professional reasons and so on to be excused and so on. That's part of our setup. But the government is not to be blamed. So if the government wants to answer a question, the government should answer a question. The government is not to be blamed. But having said that, Mr. Speaker, I want to draw your attention. A file came before him, and on this issue of non-renewal of contracts, which was raised by several of them. Yeah, it's in the motion too. Mr. Speaker, a file came before that minister in 2021, it was May. And the legal department in the ministry, you'll be shocked, the legal department in that Ministry of Energy recommended 6 operators for continuation of contract license. For lease operator and farm out operation and so on. It's called 6. Touchstone Corporation, Oil Belt Services. I'm not calling the names of principals. I'm just calling the company. Touchstone Corporation, Oil Belt Services, Lease Operators Limited, T.N. Ramnath and Company Limited, Petroleum Contracting Services, and Muncie Oil Company, not Moonilal, Muncie Oil Company Limited. The legal department in the ministry recommended 6. The Minister of Energy at that time, on the 10th of May 2021, placed in the minute file, P.S. Minute refers, I have executed all sub-license except one, but one. This particular sub-license is of concern to me and I wanted to do some inquiring first. So the ministry now recommends 6. The only one the minister decided that he have to inquire more into is T.N. Ramnath and Company Limited, South-based contractor. Why? 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 What do you say? Because he's from Pinal? Mr. Speaker, so in May 2021, he says I have to inquire. When I arrive on the compound, in May 2025, I saw the file. I am told by the officials that that is... Yes, please, Mr. Speaker, thank you. Let me get quickly here. So, Mr. Speaker, I took the file, I looked at it, I asked the legal department, they said they have no difficulty. I said, did the minister ever inquire anything more? They said, we have no record of the minister inquiring anything more. And for 4 years, refused to give an extension on a sublease.
That is wickedness.
That is wickedness. That is what you're talking about. So, Mr. Speaker, 2 months later, I placed on the file, I have inquired, approved, Roodal Moonilal. In July 2025, I approved. And Mr. Speaker, there was an excellent thing I'll put on the record because I'm showing the depth of wickedity by the PNM administration. The minister, the then minister actually, you have to sign in duplicate. He signed 1 copy. And then when he realized who it's for, he said, hold up, I have to inquire. When I signed, I told him I'll sign the 2nd copy. They are now the only operator with a license signed by 2 ministers of energy. In 2 separate administrations. They said, but minister, you can sign both, we'll just print it over. I said, don't print over nothing. That must be a lasting example of discrimination, malice, vindictiveness. Wickedity, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'll put that on the table because, when I hear, my younger colleagues, they just arrived yesterday. So we don't want to, press them too much. They don't know. And they lack guidance on that side, terribly. And I tell my young colleagues, you all, if you're bright enough and think you must seek guidance on this side, look at the experience, look at the qualifications, look at the skill level. Look here, if you need advice, if you need help, if you depend on those on this far side of the opposition, I want to tell you something. What the former Prime Minister, your cuckoo cook. If you depend on them. Mr. Speaker, so the member for Diego Martin Central, really, he added nothing to the debate. He converted oxygen to carbon dioxide. And there's nothing to think of him. That was his contribution. I read the contributions from Maleva. I read the contribution from the mover of the motion, of course, and I had those matters to raise. You see, Mr. Speaker, and on the social-economic development front, again, I want to indicate, Mr. Speaker, that we are extremely proud that within recent times, the developments in the energy sector has led us, Mr. Speaker, to pay dividend. Phoenix Park gas processors, for example, announced just yesterday at an annual general meeting that for the first time in 3 years, they will pay dividends to their shareholders. First time in 3 years. And this is coming, Mr. Speaker, this is coming after they have indicated, Mr. Speaker, that the total amount of dividends paid since May 1st, 2025 is $50 million United States dollars. It was in compliance with Phoenix Park gas dividend policy, and that, of course, is for their shareholders, Mr. Speaker. In fact, I am informed by NGC that they are even considering paying dividends in United States dollars. That is where we have reached, Mr. Speaker. So if you ask the question, the total amount of dividends that have been paid to date and which currency, I will indicate that to date, we have paid $50 million United States dollars. And that was paid, Mr. Speaker, in United States dollars. Mr. Speaker, if somebody would be bold enough to ask me, Mr. Speaker, how much the National Gas Corporation payment of dividends from May 1st, 2025? If you are bold enough to ask that question, Mr. Speaker, how much did they pay and in which currency? Because this adds to our social economic development. Mr. Speaker, I'll be proud to tell you that the amount of dividends that have been paid since May 1st, 2025 is $666,965,900 Trinidad and Tobago dollars. Paid in Trinidad and Tobago dollars from May 1, 2025. So, Mr. Speaker, these payments are payments that are made to shareholders. It boosts our economic development. It puts us in a position where we can happily meet and treat with some of our social responsibilities. We can meet and treat with employment and so on. Mr. Speaker, in winding up this matter, in winding up my arguments here, I was shocked by a particular matter. I want to congratulate the Member of Parliament for the constituency of Princestown, of Couva North. Couva South, sorry. Okay. I congratulated Couva North already. Okay. Couva South now. Who raised an interesting matter because I had to read his presentation as well, the leader of government business. And he referred to the member for Laventille West as also being as a matter of fact, not an opinion, being a recipient or beneficiary of CPEP contracts. Now, at first I said, what? But the member for Couva South is known to do his research and get his figures and so on, so no one expects him to say something unless he's properly researched. And, Mr. Speaker, I awaited some information which I received just today. I received, I think, an hour or two ago, Mr. Speaker, and I am told that there's a company called BK Construction Limited, entered into contract relationships and contracts with CPEP from October 2018 to October 2019, then October 2019 to October 2021, then 2021 to 2022, then 2023 to 2029. It would have still been subsisting had action not been taken. Mr. Speaker, this contractor received a total payment from CPEP of $8,489,276.49. Let me repeat that because this, let me get some water. Repeat that. My throat got dry calling that figure. CPEP, $8,489,276.49. Well, we do away with cents, so that will be 50 cents. All right. Mr. Finance Minister, 50 cents. So, Mr. Speaker, this contractor, and there's a rule in this parliament, which again, I don't blame Laventille West. I blame the senior members opposite. I blame them. When I looked through his speech, there was no reference to indicate that he had an interest a personal or beneficial interest in matters that he's speaking about. I remember over the years the PNM made a big...
Standing Order 48.6, the member did announce in this parliament that he was the recipient of CPAP contracts in the past.
I think there's a different standing order for disclosure of conflicts of interest. 48.6 deals with the imputations of improper motive. I don't think there's an imputation there. There's no imputation.
Mr. Speaker, unless... what is the standing order? What is the
48.6? The member is claiming that this member here is doing something improper in the parliament, which is imputing improper motives.
There's a different standing order that deals with declarations of conflicts of interest. There's a different standing order. Standing Order 48.6 is meant to deal with the imputations of improper motive. All the member is saying, look, I've ruled on this. Move on.
Mr. Speaker, nowhere in the Hansard in this debate did the member, unless I miss it, did the member make reference to his interest in the debate in piloting this motion. So, Mr. Speaker, on that grounds alone, and the member for San Fernando, he said, you cannot declare what is the interest of Salvantil West. You must declare your own interest. No, you can't say what he said. What do you think this is? This is not a snack, it is the parliament. You can't be telling me what he said and that he will speak for himself. And we are saying on the Hansard there is no reference. And Mr. Speaker...
Chief, let me just confirm. You said something. You've scoured the Hansard and there's no reference to it.
Mr. Speaker, I stand corrected. Let's say I stand corrected.
Okay.
Someone can find the reference. But Mr. Speaker, the fact of the matter is that in my hand is also notice concerning company documents, and it is now a confirmed fact that Lavantil West was involved in that company, BK Construction Limited, as deemed to be a businessman. Now, I have no problem with that. That is his right. Everyone is entitled to, conduct professional and business work and so on. That is his right. But on that ground, I find it shocking that the member may not have been as forthwith as he should. Mr. Speaker, given the frivolous, vexatious, ill-advised wording and intent of this motion, I believe it should be defeated forthwith. Yes. And Mr. Speaker, in those circumstances, in accordance with Standing Order 52.1, I beg to move that the question be now put. I thank you.
What is being south? Yeah, I know. Yeah, hold on. Boris Prince South, can I hear you on the application pursuant to 52.1? I will give you a hearing on that, but it seems to me that the purport of the standing order is quite clear. And any residual discretion, I have to refuse it, is a very narrowly circumscribed one. But I will hear you on that.
Mr. Speaker, I see that 52.1 anticipates the closure of the debate, and it asks that a question, after a question has been proposed, any member may at any time during the course of the debate rise in his place and move that the question be now put, and unless it appears to the chair that the motion is an abuse of the rules of the House or an infringement of the rights of the minority, the question now be put shall immediately be put. Mr. Speaker, it is my respectful submission that to accede to this request abuses my rights as to speak on a private member's motion day, which today has been specifically allocated for.
I've read these standing orders. There are two sets of standing orders which provide for closure for debate. There is Standing Order 46.2, which provides that any minister may move an application to close a debate which is critical of the government. That standing order is confined to a minister moving the House. Standing Order 52 is a standing order of general application. Any member may move to close a debate pursuant to 52. The jurisdiction of the Speaker is then a very narrowly circumscribed jurisdiction. So there are two instances in which the Speaker can refuse to accede to putting the question. It only arises in two circumstances. One, if it is an abuse of the rules. Plainly, an abuse of the rules has to be that the rule is being used for an improper motive. Okay? I don't think we have any such evidence here. The only issue which arises is whether or not it is, and I want to quote it, it is an infringement of the rights of the minority. Mays, McGee, all the textbooks, I have read them. There has been extensive debate on this. 8 speakers have spoken. 8 speakers have spoken. Everyone has spoken who has spoken so far. It's been largely repetitious. I've considered these standing orders because I've read them. And as I said, the discretion which is to be exercised is not an open textured one. It is only in 2 very narrowly circumscribed, hang on a second, put the screens out. Narrowly circumscribed circumstances that it can be refused. That's the problem. The way the standing orders are constructed is that once you don't meet either an abuse or a suppression of the minority, the question has to be put. In my respectful view, the evidence does not arise to an abuse of the rules, and neither is it an infringement on the rights of the minority. Everyone has a right to speak, but if historical evidence is, no, I'm ruling. Don't wish to hear anyone. I heard you. Have a seat. Have a seat. Port of Spain South. Port of Spain South. Port of Spain South. I am standing. We cannot both stand. We cannot both stand. Have your seat. Have your seat. Have your seat. There has been ample precedent set in this House, because I've read it too. I think members who know me know that I have read the Hansard just for historical interest. There are 2 narrowly circumscribed. Have a seat. Member, please resume your seat. Member, resume your seat. I propose to put the question.
Mr. Speaker.
Honourable members, I've ruled. Honourable members, the question is,
Speaker,
be it resolved.
Mr. Speaker, you're not willing to listen to anyone on this side? Mr. Speaker, it's a disgrace. A disgrace.
It makes
It's
no
an abuse of process.
distinction here. Marshal, Chief Whip, have your seat. Have your seat.
And a disrespect.
Members, I propose to put the question. Honourable members, the question is, be it resolved that this Honourable House take note of the socio-economic impact of increased unemployment in communities arising from mass terminations and non-renewal of contracts and of the resulting breakdown in community and social life. And be it further resolved that this government urgently respond to this developing socio-economic crisis by immediately providing adequate and meaningful social relief measures. All in favour, say aye. Any against? No. The noes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this House do now adjourn to a date to be fixed.
Before I put the question to the House, I want to revert to communication which I received belatedly, and I think it was brought to my attention inadvertently late. Honourable members, I received communication from the Honourable Khadija Amin, member for St. Augustine, who has requested leave of absence from today's sitting, and I should have done so earlier. That leave is granted. Honourable members, the question is that this House do now adjourn to a date to be fixed. Those in favour, say aye. Aye. Any against? This House now stands adjourned to a date to be fixed. Thank you very much.